But tell me, man, why do you believe that Jay and Puffy is close, even though Jay lawyer came out and said they're not?
Because Jay-Z and Puff was given an assignment.
Now, if the government is going to mandate that they are responsible for your well-being, they have to ensure the safety of your well-being.
Hip-hop has always been known for its drama and power struggles, as well as its beats and bars, but what if some of the top names in the business weren't merely rivals? Instead, they were reportedly conspiring to take over the entire industry. That's precisely what GAN deals with. If Diddy's former bodyguard's claims in recent interviews are accurate, the story of East Coast rap may be darker and more calculating than anyone could have predicted. So, buckle up, because what you're about to hear could fundamentally alter your perception of hip-hop icons. Let's establish the scene. In the history of rap, the late 1990s and early 2000s were pivotal, with artists like Biggie and Jay-Z revolutionizing the hip-hop sound. The East Coast had solidified its supremacy, while the West Coast was illuminated by legends like Dr. Dre. Not only was it a fight for cultural supremacy, but two of the most influential figures in East Coast rap, GAN and Jay-Z, were allegedly working behind the scenes to stifle their own region's talent. Snoop Dogg and Shakur were fighting back with their own brand of gritty streetwise storytelling.
And that was to destroy East Coast rap. And what I mean by that, and I know people gonna be like, yo, Gene is out of his mind and everything like that. Check this out, brother.
According to the deal, Diddy and Jay-Z were tasked by unidentified industry forces to prevent rising East Coast rappers from gaining too much power or influence. He claims that this is because record labels were fed up with giving New York artists huge advances, sometimes as much as $1 million or more, only to watch smaller labels in the South make even more money with much smaller budgets. The industry saw a chance to divert its attention and resources away from the East Coast when Southern labels like Cash Money and No Limit were producing platinum-selling records with a fraction of the expense.
And they was getting a lot of money to make albums and records. When they had guys down south that these labels was paying $250,000, $300,000 on record deals, and these guys was bringing back platinum albums and everything like that. So what they had to do was they had to keep...
According to the deal, Diddy and Jay-Z allegedly used their power to decide who was signed and who wasn't, effectively shutting the door on up-and-coming artists from their own area. He says they purposefully prevented artists like Cameron and Beanie Sigel from realizing their full potential so that no one from the East Coast could challenge their dominance. It wasn't just about money, it was also about power. By keeping the playing field small, they were able to maintain their positions as the GAT.
New York rappers down. That's one reason, other than the Irv Gotti that 50 was going through and the poison they was putting in about 50, he had to go elsewhere to California, or with Jay and not with Dre and Eminem to get a deal.
Deal goes even further, claiming that this wasn't just a business decision but rather part of a larger scheme to completely undermine East Coast dominance in hip-hop. He claims that the industry wanted to move the focus from New York to other areas, and Diddy and Jay-Z were allegedly complicit in making that happen. This is a startling accusation, especially given how much these two have profited from their association with East Coast rap, but if Deal is telling the truth, their success may have come at the expense of innumerable other artists who never had a chance.
They did not want East Coast rappers to get big. They were suppressing all new artists that was coming out of New York. Jay and Diddy was doing that.
Let's take a closer look at some of the names that Deal mentioned. For instance, Cameron was one of the most promising artists to emerge from New York in the late 1990s and early 2000s. His unique flow and clever wordplay made him a fan favorite, and his Dippic crew was ready to take over the game. However, according to Deal, Cameron's rise was blocked by Jay-Z's refusal to support him in the industry. This claim is supported, at least in part, by statements that Cameron has made over the years in interviews about the difficulties he faced trying to break through is undoubtedly suspicious.
Because him and Diddy was given that deal, we gotta keep these East Coast rappers down. Because down south rappers, Cash Money, No Limit, Ludacris and them, they was taking little money and bringing back more money and making more money for them.
Then there's Beanie Sigel, another artist signed to Jay-Z's Rockefeller Records who seemed destined for fame. Bean was a powerful lyricist with a devoted following, but his career never quite took off as many had anticipated. One deal suggests that Jay-Z intentionally kept Beanie from becoming too successful, possibly out of concern that he would once again overshadow the Rockefeller boss. This claim is hard to confirm, but it begs the question of how Jay-Z influenced the careers of people around him.
So they was placed to destroy the East Coast rap. And then, along came a somebody. They was about to bring East Coast rap back. And there's nothing they could do about it. And this kid was finna put East Coast.
Because making these claims isn't the only thing, oh no, dash. In interviews, Jay-Z's former business partner has also discussed how Jay allegedly managed things at Rockefeller. While Dash remarks are frequently written off as sour grapes, they do add another level to the narrative that Deal is telling. However, according to Deal, the bad boy mogul was just as involved in this alleged scheme as Jay-Z, who claims that Diddy used his power to stifle new talent so that no one could challenge his position as the king. Dash has accused Jay of putting his own interests ahead of the success of the label's other artists, even hinting that Jay may have been working against some of them behind the scenes of New York over the years. A number of artists have come forward with claims that Diddy manipulated contacts, withheld royalties, and otherwise took advantage of the artists on his label. However, Deal's claims go beyond bad business. If what he's saying is accurate, Diddy wasn't just looking out for himself, he was actively trying to destroy the entire East Coast rap scene.
Now, I ain't trying to say that's some kind of conspiracy, and maybe some other was going on, or this, that, and the third. But brother, he had that conversation with K. Slade 2 weeks before he was.
Deal's assertion that this conspiracy also affected the next generation of artists is one of the most heartbreaking aspects of his story. He cites the Brooklyn rapper Pop Smoke, who was about to become the next big thing in East Coast rap before his tragic death. According to Deal, Pop Smoke posed a threat to the status quo and there were forces in the industry that didn't want to see him succeed. Deal even claims that legendary DJ K. Slay warned Pop Smoke's team to be extra vigilant, telling them that they would have to protect him with their lives. A few weeks later, Pop Smoke vanished, and there is no evidence that Diddy or Jay-Z were involved to utilize it. Deal's remarks draw attention to the risks involved in attempting to upend the sector.
This has to be a 100% culture shock. I can't imagine living a lifestyle of the incredibly rich and famous and then going into this very dark, impersonal, cold, austere facility.
Of course, not everyone agrees with what Deal is selling. Critics have noted that he has been out of the public eye for years and may have had personal motivations for making these claims. Others counter that his story is too fantastical, pointing out that Diddy and Jay-Z have both played a significant role in influencing the careers of numerous artists. However, the reality is that many of the artists mentioned, including Cameron Beanie, SEL, and even Pop Smoke, faced significant obstacles in their careers. Why did those obstacles arise? Was it a deliberate conspiracy, or were they simply the inevitable difficulties of the music industry? Debatable.
The Special Housing Unit is a 24-hour lockdown unit, which means that any movement within that unit is controlled and coordinated, and no inmate moves outside of his cell without being in full restraints, to include leg irons, handcuffs, a belly chain, and at least 2, if not 3 staff members escorting.
The effect that these accusations are having on Diddy and Jay-Z's legacies is beyond dispute. Both men have spent decades establishing their brands as entrepreneurs, cultural icons, and artists. They have been praised for their accomplishments and cited as examples of what can happen when talent and ambition meet opportunity. However, if Deal's assertions are accurate, their success may have come at a price, which was the careers of other gifted artists who were never given the chance to shine.
You know, I think in federal court and for these charges, they would say it's routine, but in the public realm, this is very significant, just from who we associate Diddy being and everything we've seen him do over the decades. Like you said, this is quite the downfall to go from, I mean, we saw the mansions back in March that were raided by the feds. So to go from living in those mansions to being in the...
Whether or not Diddy and Jay-Z were actually trying to stifle East Coast rap, their actions have had a significant impact on the industry. And as more people come forward with their own stories, it is evident that the world of hip-hop is far more complex and ruthless than most of us ever imagined. We might at last have a comprehensive understanding of what was actually happening behind the scenes, which raises the more important question of whether the industry was prepared to use links to exert control. What more have they been concealing, and who else might have been engaged in the East Coast rap narrative? If there's one thing we've learnt from this, it's that saga now that we've revealed the alleged conspiracy between Diddy and Jay-Z to suppress East Coast rap. It's time to make the connection between these allegations and the notorious East Coast-West Coast feud. This wasn't just about music, it was about control. Let's delve even deeper into this complex web of power, betrayal and manipulation because, believe me, what comes next makes the first part seem almost tame. If there is any truth to Gandil's allegations about power and the extent certain people will go to maintain their position of dominance, the East Coast-West Coast feud story is far darker than we could have envisioned.
And Stacey, you say today's indictment reads like a mob indictment. What was most shocking to you of all these allegations?
Yeah, the fact, Jake, that the government in this indictment presented evidence alleging that Sean Combs was running a criminal enterprise.
Let's go back to the mid-1990s, when the East Coast-West Coast rivalry was in full swing, with Shakur flying the flag for California and Biggie representing New York. It started as a clash of styles, personalities, and ideologies, but it soon turned into something much darker, according to decades-old rumors. This rivalry wasn't just natural, it was fueled by people behind the scenes who stood to gain from the chaos, and this is where things get interesting. There are claims that Diddy, who was at the height of his career with Bad Boy Records, was involved. Diddy has consistently denied any role in this feud, yet he may have been one of the main people pulling the strings rather than just a bystander. Tragic events of that time period, but let's examine the accusations in more detail. In the years following Shakur's death, a number of sources, including former detectives and insiders, have pointed fingers at him. One of the most shocking claims, made by former gang member Duane Cy-D Davis, was that Diddy offered him a sizable sum of money to carry out a hit on Shakur and Suge Knight. Kevy D has stated this on numerous occasions, including in interviews for his 2019 memoir, claiming that Diddy was determined to destroy his West Coast rivals and was prepared to do anything it took to achieve this goal.
The only man currently facing murder charges in the case, Duane Keffe D. Davis, claims that Sean Combs, also known as Diddy, paid for a hit on Tupac.
However, why would Diddy allegedly go this far? Deal's theory provided some insight into this. If Diddy was attempting to stifle East Coast talent, it's easy to imagine that he would also view Shakur and Suge Knight as threats to his empire. After all, Shakur was a worldwide superstar and Suge Knight wasn't just another record executive. Death Row Records was ruling the charts. If the rumors are accurate, Diddy may have viewed their success as a barrier to his own goals, particularly if he was attempting to keep control of the rap industry.
Right now, Davis is fighting for bail ahead of his trial, which he has pleaded not.
And let's not forget the infamous 1995 Source Awards, which many consider to be the turning point in the East Coast-West Coast feud from a behind-the-scenes dispute to a full-fledged public war. Knight, in one of the most famous moments in hip-hop history, took the stage and called out Diddy without mentioning his name, saying that any artist who aspires to be an artist and wants to remain a star and not have to worry about the executive producer, all in the videos, all on the records, dancing come to death row. The crowd erupted, and suddenly the rivalry was in the open. Diddy responded by calling for unity, but behind the scenes the tension only expanded, and this is where things become murkier, according to a number of sources, including the transaction. What began as a professional rivalry swiftly turned into a personal one. The allegations that Diddy was involved in the Las Vegas incident that killed Shakur have been unproven for decades, and Biggie suffered a similar fate in Los Angeles 6 months later. Some say this was retaliation, while others say it was a part of a larger conspiracy. Unquestionably, These incidents caused a lasting scar on hip-hop and brought up issues that haven't been resolved yet.
As far as, is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life. With all the charges he has to, he won't get out till 70 years old. He about 70. That's when they start talking about letting him come to a halfway house.
However, since Jay-Z's involvement in all of this is equally intriguing and contentious as Diddy's alleged dealings with his West Coast rivals, let's bring him back into the discussion. Jay-Z rose through the ranks and established himself as the King of New York, but there are rumors that his rise wasn't totally natural. Some claim that Jay-Z may have profited from the chaos of the East Coast-West Coast feud by using it to strengthen his own position, while others, including Deal, claim that Jay-Z was actively trying to silence other East Coast musicians in order to maintain his position at the top.
Sean had to take responsibility for what he did as an individual. Sean is the one who pulled that gun out. Sean is the one who shot. So he has to take responsibility for that.
In contrast to Diddy, who has frequently been in the heart of controversy, Jay-Z has always been cautious about his public image. Jay has, at least until recently, avoided most crises, but he believes Deal's allegations present a different picture. Jay-Z's strategic behind-the-scenes actions were not only for commercial gain, they were also intended to guarantee that no one could threaten his supremacy, and if that meant holding other gifted artists down, then so be it.
Jay-Z got his ass whooped by his sister-in-law on camera. What's her name? Solange. You got it after. The feds ain't step in and do nothing. The feds don't care about you getting your ass whooped.
In interviews, Dame Dash, Jay-Z's former business partner at Rock Records, has been one musician to speak out against the rapper's claimed tactics. Dash has accused Jay of putting his own interests ahead of the label's and other artists' success. He has even implied that Jay may have ruined some careers to safeguard his own. Dash's remarks could be written off as the resentment of a former partner, and they support some of the accusations made by Deal. However, when you consider the careers of artists like Beanie Sigel and Cameron, it's difficult not to wonder if there is any truth to these claims. But what about the other players in this story? Deal claims that this wasn't just about Diddy and Jay-Z, it was part of a larger attempt by the music industry to completely shift the focus away from the East Coast, and it's evident that something significant was happening when you look at the rise of Southern rap in the early 2000s. Artists like Lil Wayne, T.I. and Outkast were dominating the charts while East Coast route seemed to fade into the background. Was this a planned move or just a natural evolution of the genre? The latter is suggested by Dale's statements, and if he is correct, the East Coast-West Coast feud was only the start.
You understand? I think that they don't want, if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions, they don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their brand.
One of the most disturbing aspects of Deal's story is his assertion that these strategies continued after the 1990s. He claims that the same forces that were used to suppress East Coast rap in the past are still in place today, and it's difficult to avoid drawing comparisons between the difficulties faced by contemporary East Coast artists. Before his untimely death, Pop Smoke, for instance, was poised to become the next big thing in East Coast rap. Many believed that Pop Smoke posed a challenge to the current quo, and although this theory is unsupported by evidence, it serves as a reminder of the seriousness of the situation in the hip-hop industry.
And we do have some breaking news that we want to bring to you. It was being reported by TMZ and now Fox News. We are learning that Jay-Z is accused of a 13-year-old girl. That is new in the Diddy lawsuit.
Moreover, there is the ongoing fallout from these claims. Whether or not these claims are true, the damage to their reputations has already been done, and they have sparked a conversation about the darker side of the music industry and the length some people will go to protect their power. Diddy is currently dealing with a wave of lawsuits and criminal charges, while Jay-Z has been named in a high-profile lawsuit that has raised serious questions about his past. Where does this leave us? Are Diddy and Jay-Z the villains of this story, or are they scapegoats for a much larger issue? The reality is that, although we may never know, it is certain that the hip-hop industry is much more intricate and ruthless than most of us could have predicted, and as more people share their own stories, the picture only becomes more hazy. As we conclude this in-depth examination of the purported plots and power struggles within the hip-hop industry, it is evident that the story is far from serious. Questions are raised by Ganal's claims regarding Diddy and Jay-Z's contributions to the development of the East Coast rap scene. However, do you believe that Diddy and Jay-Z are the real masterminds of a plot to dominate the industry, or are they being unfairly singled out? If these claims are true, who else might be involved in this complex web of manipulation? Share your thoughts in the comments section. The remarks that follow the discussion is only beginning. Until then, stay tuned for further revelations and perspectives into the realm of celebrity rumors. For now, goodbye.